Alright, we're just going to go and start with some knife cuts so that you know what the different types are. First of all, you need to know a little bit about knife safety. First thing you need to do is make sure that you have a wet paper towel and you are able to put it right underneath the cutting board. That's key so that it doesn't move, and just in case it slips, it won't, while you're using your knife, you won't cut yourself. So we're going to put this back on. A couple other things that you need to make sure. Knife safety is that you have, this is your French knife. Now, what the general rule is that the big things, you're going to use a big knife. Small things, you use smaller knives, which you'll see in a sec. When you're using the big knife, there is the point, there is the rocking edge, which makes it, rocking means that it goes back and forth, and then there's a heel. Whenever you're using your knife, I'm a lefty, so hopefully it's mirror image, but you're going to go and point and you follow through. Point and you follow through. I've seen a lot where people just do this or drag back, but usually you just want to point and follow through. So that in the end, you'll get a very nice motion. So when you're cutting, it's fluid versus if you actually are trying to cut and you go backwards, it feels super awkward. Other things you need to set up your station properly would be a towel and a waste bowl, just so that everything is ready to go. A good thing to have is also a tray, so that you can put your mise en place right on, ready to go also. So we're going to first start off with some really easy cuts. We're going to start off with something called a chiffonade. So I have some mint here, and we're going to go with chiffonade. Chiffonade means to put into ribbons. Now this is important because chiffonade specifically will be for herbs that are leafy and leafy vegetables. Other than that, you don't usually use chiffonade for anything else. So I'm going to get started. We are going to start off with the chiffonade. You're going to go and stack your herbs together. So this could be basil, it could be parsley, anything that's quite leafy. And you're going to go and roll it. But when you're rolling it, make sure that you're not rolling it really tight. Because if you roll it really tight, what will happen is you're going to bruise your actual herb. And then when you finish cutting it, it's going to go and turn black. The other thing about this is making sure you have a very sharp knife. Always go through the steel, which is this one, in the beginning and also at the end of each time you start cutting. So we're going to go and put this, and we roll it, and I'm just going to tuck it with my fingers tucked in, and I'm just going to point and I'm going to follow through. I'm going to let the knife do its work, so I'm actually not putting any pressure in here. And it's going to be a really thin and consistent chiffonade. Okay, so if you can see it, it's actually super thin, and you can see that it's little strips, or what we call is ribbons. So this is what chiffonade looks like. So the second thing that we're going to do is going to be cutting an onion. We're going to do, one's half going to be julienne, the other half is going to be a dice. So often a lot of people are confused when you're cutting an onion, but it's important to cut properly for two very good reasons. One, it's consistent cooking, and that goes for all cuts. The other one, it is obviously onions make you cry. So if you actually cut it properly, it will make you cry less. So that's one of the things you need to go and do. When I am looking at the onion, so this is one of the onions right here. I'll use one that's a little bit bigger. You'll see that there's actually lines, okay? So one of the things that you should not do is actually cut it this way, okay? And this is what happened with this one. Because it's harder to control. So we'll put this one to the side. What rather you should do is you cut it with the lines. So the general thing is always think with the lines. So I'm going to go on, first of all, cut off the little bit of the root, because the root actually has a little bit of soil. Wipe this off. And another general rule is that making sure that your cutting board is always clean. So that's why you have a rag there or a paper towel. And when you're wiping things down, just make sure it's wet. And that way you don't have bits and pieces of the old cut into your new cut. So we're going to go and cut this part off. Okay, we got the layers, and the easiest way to peel right here you see the lines going back up and down, and that's where you want to cut. So in easy is a lot of people just keep peeling away your onions and it takes forever. So one thing that's easier is just doing things in stages and cutting it straight down first. Once you have that, it's quite easy to peel off your onion. You want to peel enough so that you got everything in here nice and smooth. There's no bits of these inedible skins. Okay, and then now once again there's the root edge, and then there is the top edge where it just grows out into the sprouts. So once again I'm going to go a little closer and you can see the lines going up and down. And what you want to do is that you're going to put it here, and let's start with a julienne. Okay, you want to take the root off by cutting an angle so the root's off, so it's not intact. Then you point and you follow through. Okay, and when I think of a julienne, it means the word match, sticks. So think about a match and how thick a match would be, and that's how thick your cuts should also be. You just follow through. Once it gets to the point, it's just really hard to handle. As you see, it's starting to fall apart. I just start to knock it to the side and let it sit flat again so that it's safe for me. And I once again start to cut. And once you get to a point where it just seems once again unsafe, you can actually discard it or actually put it into a stock bin. So here we use actual bones and we make our own stock to make sauces and soups. And this is not the proper cut, but what we could do is we could save it, freeze it, and we could put it into our stock and it'll flavor it instead of wasting. So I'll put it right here. So now that I'm done with one cut, I'm just going to put this over to my tray. That way I'm going to make sure it's free. Okay, and that's a really good habit to build. Once you have that, I'm going to start to show you the dice. Now this one's a little bit more confusing, but it's super simple and easy once you get it. You're going to go and start with the horizontal cuts. Once again, there is a root. You want this time the root to stay in, okay, and that's very key. The root has to be intact. You're going to go and put this over, and I'm going to do my parallel cuts first. I'm going to put my hand over. Now don't hold it like this, or else when you go through, you're going to cut yourself. So put your hand almost like a seal almost, just bending and curving up. And you want to have your go and cut in a parallel to the board a couple of cuts. Now the important thing about this is making sure that all the cuts are the same length or width, because it's all going to look like a dice, and a dice, if you look at it when you roll a dice, it is a cube, so all sides are even. So I got this, and I didn't go all the way through, so it looks like an accordion. And then I'm going to go now turn, and I'm going to go and follow the lines. Okay? Once again, I'm not going to cut through, so I'm going to point and go down. Point and go down. Point and go down. And try my very best to go and make it so that it's the same, like I said, width, because once again, you're trying to make a dice. So a dice is not like a rectangle, so you want to same width on all sides. Once you got that, I'm going to take the strays out just so that makes it easier. Once again, I didn't follow through, so it's actually like an accordion. Okay, I'm going to try not to do it so much that it's going to fall apart. Then I'm going to go cut this part off. And I'm just going to let the knife bits work now. I'm going to hold it together and a point, and this time I'm going to go all the way through. Okay? Point, go all the way through. Point, all the way through. And what that does is that now I'm going to get an even dice. And what happened is that with even cuts means even cooking, which means that your product will be a lot better. Once again, once I get to the point where I couldn't do any more, I'll put it aside. It'll be for my stock bin. So if you take a look at my product, it's pretty even, okay? And if you actually look, some of it's not exactly a dice. The onions have different layers, but if you take a look at this, it is a dice. And that's exactly what you want. Okay? Once again, cutting comes from practice, but it also comes with proper technique. So the more that you practice cutting, the easier it's going to be. Alright, so next we're going to do is the zucchini. And we're going to do four different cuts. So we're going to go from a batonette, or baton, which is, think about sticks. So this could be for any type of vegetable, and you can transform whatever look it is into a uniform cut, which is what you want. You want consistency. So that's why whenever I cook, I discourage people to do carrot coins or anything else, because I would like it to be, when you're cooking, you want the cuts to be consistent, so the cooking will be consistent. So we're going to start with the batonette, and then what we're going to do is turn it into a dice. Later on, the other half of the zucchini, we're going to turn it from a julienne into a brunoise. And they're exactly the same thing, but just smaller dimensions from the batonette and the dice. When you're making this goes with any vegetable cuts. You're going to start off with cutting anything circular and just making it into a square. So I'm going to start off with, and this could be for like carrots, it doesn't have to be zucchini, it could be like cucumbers, celery, or anything else, but it's just you manipulating the vegetable so it can cut properly and into whatever shape you want. So you start off with the zucchini, and you're going to make a length around like 4 inches or so, and you're just going to go cut down. Okay. Once you got that, I usually, if it's a green vegetable, I would like to leave it green instead of peeling it or cutting that part off, because that's the beautiful part about it. So we're going to try our best to go and leave that part on. So we're going to go and cut a little bit off just to go and make sure that this part is stabilized. Then we're going to go and cut just a tad, just to curve it. And then we're going to go and start to make strips. And you want the strips to be around a half to a third of an inch, I guess. Okay, and any excess that doesn't look good, you're going to put it to the side. Okay, but they all should be pretty even. Once you got that, you're just going to turn it, and you're just going to go and you can stack it on top of each other if you want, which just makes it so that you don't have to, you do 2 things at the half of the time that you need to. Then you're just going to go and point, and you just go and drag down. Okay, point and drag down. Or you can just do what I'm just doing right now. And you want to go and take the time to go and pick perfect cuts. Now, when you guys are going to get a little bit faster, it'll be easier. Okay, to do. Okay, so when you are doing a batonette, this is basically what it looks like. And like I said, this could be a celery, it could be a carrot, and it'll be a stick that's long. And then if you look on the side, it is as much of a square as you can. So take a look at this one. Okay. Once you get to this stage, you should always work in stages so that your ability to go faster or efficiently will be better. So you basically get everything to this stage, or actually get them all into this stage. And then when you're ready, get it all into this stage. And this will be the batonette. So you can serve the batonette if you want. You can use this as to glaze carrots. You can actually just put it on the plate and just do little designs. So it doesn't really need to do much more. But if you're going to do a dice, which if you one day making a soup, you want diced vegetables, you're just going to take it, and I call it line up the soldiers. So I line them up so it's all even. Then I cut, and I look at it to make sure it's a square, and then I follow through. Because once you cut, that's it. You can't go back. It's kind of like your hair. So we're going to do that again. Cut and follow through, cut and follow through, cut and follow through. And then as you go on, because your batonettes are a square already, when you cut this side, you will end up having, and then all the little bits that are not very nice, you can get off. You'll see that the dice is actually a perfect cube. We're going to do now the julienne. So once again, you saw how big the dices are and how the batonette looks like. And now this time we're going to go and get this into a julienne. So it's the same exact thing, except this time you're just making everything smaller. So I cut this so that it doesn't wiggle around. Now that it's flat, it sits properly. Then I'm just going to go and make into the size of a matchstick in thickness. Now it's important that you actually still think of everything as a cube, because you're trying to make it as a cube, essentially. So I got this all to this point, and just let me get one that is a batonette just for you. So sometimes a trick that, as you can see what I'm doing, if it gets to a point where it's a little bit unstable, I usually just try to cut with my hands in between. That way I can stabilize it and won't knock off and just hurt myself. So now that I got my slices, I just double check to see that it is actually a good length or good width, and they're all even. So I find that this one's actually thinner than the other, so I'll just separate the two. I'm going to go on point, and I follow through, get off the excess so that it's square on. And then now I'm just going to go and cut my julienne. So if you look at my cuts, it is still looking very similar to a batonette. Okay. But just a lot smaller. So once again, it is just the same length, okay? But it's just like a mini one. So once again, you can still see the square right here, and that's perfect. Okay. So I'm gonna go and now same thing, follow through. Once I got that, I'm just going to go and take a bunch of it, line it up once again, lining up my soldiers. And once again, as long as it's manageable, so if it is too much, just put some to the side. But the more that you practice having a bigger bunch, then you waste less time to cut, because that's not the part of the cooking, it's just mise en place. So the faster you prep, the faster you're going to be finished. So I'm going to go and make sure that everything is nice and tight. And I do this a lot with cucumbers too. Then line up my soldiers. And I'm going to point and follow through. So that when you see it, as you can see it swiping off, it is a square. And then it'll be very similar to a dice, which is the bigger side, but once again, it's just a lot smaller, and you have a perfect dice. So, we are going to be doing some concassé today. So a concassé just means a tomato that has been de-skinned, de-seeded, and diced tomato. Now, I want you to take a look at the water, because I want you to go and observe there's a difference between boiling state, simmering state, and a poaching state. So what you're seeing right now is a boiling state, because you can see the water is rapidly moving and there's lots of bubbles coming in. There's a lot of agitation. As I turn it down, I'm going to go and make it so that it's like a simmer. Hopefully it gets there. There we go. Okay, so as simmer is just that there's less agitation in the water, it's a bit more still. Okay, but there's a little bit of bubbles coming up, so if you see it, it actually has some little bit of bubbles. Okay, I'm going to go and rain down, and you see quite a lot, and then I like it when you do that, super cool, it just like bubbles up. But you're going to go and put, see, your salt in there, because whenever you're boiling, blanching, or I guess par cooking, which means that you half cooked the vegetable, you want lots of water, and you want it 100% always boiling. This is also the case for pasta too. But afterwards, what we're going to do is we're going to take the tomato, and remember, small things, we're going to use small knives, and we're going to go and put a crisscross right over the bottom, not the top, the bottom, okay? So we're gonna do that with all the rest. And remember, proper technique is actually what makes a person have really good cooking or a subpar cooking. It all starts with technique. So I'm just gonna go in. All these little details actually matter. So I'm just gonna go in, take the bottom, give it a score. I'm not trying to cut into it, I'm just scoring it. Because what I'm gonna do now, in the boiling water, I'm gonna dunk. And another hint is that if you're scared of hurting yourself, do the opposite. Don't drop it from nice and high. You actually wanna drop it as close to the water as possible, then it won't splash, okay? You didn't even hear a sound. So, once you got that going, you're gonna go and wait for a couple seconds. While that happens, I have some ice right here. And I'm gonna fill it up. And you want mainly ice and water, okay? Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna shock the tomato. We're not cooking the tomato, we're just trying to de-skin it. So once that happens, you'll see that it's able to go and peel off. If you're able to peel off a little bit of your tomato and it's starting to split, it's perfect time to release it. We're gonna just turn that off into the ice water. But the thing is, you're gonna make sure it is completely submerged. So I'll just let you see that right here. Now it's important to cool this 100% down because once again, your goal is not to cook the tomato. So the reason why you put it in ice water is to stop it from cooking. So you can't take it out when it's warm or else it'll continue to cook and then you have a subpar product. So you just leave it in here until it's ready to go. So just to take a look at it now, we're going to be able to, if we did it properly, we'd be able to go and peel this tomato. I'm just going to find one that is split so that you can see it split. You're going to be able to peel the tomato without getting all the meat off. It's really simply, I'm not sure if you're able to see it, but it's literally like peeling off super simply. And it will not, you're not peeling any of the meat off. That's a good thing. If you peel the meat off, that means you overcooked it. So I'm peeling off the skin only, and it's like a super smooth tomato. And it actually makes the tomato, when you eat it, a lot more juicier because there's no skin that actually prevents it from popping in your mouth. So a lot of times in the restaurants, we make this into a de-skinned tomato, and we use it for various different things, such as you'll see sometimes I make it into relish, or I can make it into sometimes even like a sorbet, which we recently did. So I'm just going to peel this all off. And once you got this to the point where it is nice, beautiful tomatoes, and it's perfectly, and if it's in season, usually it will be a lot softer, so you might not get the shape that you want. It'll be tastier. If you want the shape, you want to find a tomato that is, best way to do it is actually to smell it. To smell their tomato. And it should smell very aromatic, okay, before you even buy it. And then, but when you feel it, it's actually slightly firm. So I'm just gonna throw this away. And you might think that, oh, maybe I should throw this away. That's possible. Or else you could keep it and make it into tomato sauces and then strain it. A good cook could actually utilize anything and everything so that it doesn't end up wasting. Once you have that, now that we got the skin, we're going to de-seed. So I'm going to go and cut this in half. Once again, small things use a small knife. So I'm going to go and not use a big knife. So I'm going to go and put this down now, and I'm going to make it into quarters. And what it actually looks like will be tomato petals. And sometimes you can use this for as a garnish too. But I'm going to go and take this, and I'm going to go and take off the seeds. Okay? Now this is actually a lot of flavor. So instead of throwing this away, I'm going to once again put it in here, and I'm going to make my tomato sauce with it. So once again, cut this in quarters. Okay, and whenever we're cooking, especially with larger things, it's best to cook things in a batch cooking style, meaning cooking things in stages. So if you're in the mode of cutting in the things into quarters, do them all in quarters first. And then, once you're ready to do the tomato petals, you're just gonna do the tomato petals. So it becomes almost like a robotic thing, and to me, that's why I like prepping sometimes. It's kind of relieves your stress if you're able to just do things in a kind of like organized manner, and also do things in a routine way. So you do this over and over again, very repetitive. Just kind of de-stresses you. At least I think so. And then after, once you get all this going, so notice that my tomato petals are still very intact. It's not actually like falling apart. So it's all about how you properly blanched it in the beginning. Okay? And the good thing about salt is that the salt actually not only flavors this, but it gives it a better texture. So now that I got all my tomato seeds all done, I'm going to go and take this to the edge, making sure that my whole area is pretty clean. Okay, make sure all the seeds are taken away because you already de-seeded it, so why all those little seeds, make sure that it's actually taken out. Lastly, I'm going to go and line them up once again. You know, the usual lining up soldiers. Okay. And I'm going to go and make lengthwise cuts. But you're going to dice it. So once again, look at the length and the width should be the same afterwards. So I'm making around 3 to 4 cuts. And they should all be around the same. Okay. Just going to do a couple for you just so that you see what's happening. Once I get to the point where I have it all lined up, notice I did it all in a row. What I'm going to do, and you could do it for the rest too, I'm going to now take the big knife because it goes in a fluid motion. I'm going to go from one end all the way to the next. So I'm going to go on point, and I'm just going to go and follow through. I'm just trying to make sure that it all looks like a dice. Okay, so when you take a look at it afterwards, I'll put it on my hand. It is a concassé. So whenever I say concassé, it's nothing short of all these steps. And it will be a de-skinned, de-seeded, and a diced tomato that is actually a perfect square. Okay?